There was a song that was popular when I was maybe a teenager that had lines like these: "This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through." And then I went on, "I can't feel at home in this world anymore." Now, I know that there are some folks who have a very unsettled home life. Not everyone has been blessed with a happy home life. But for most of us, there's something very warm and secure about being at home. In today's reading from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 to 8, Paul writes about being at home. "For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house which is from heaven, if so be that being clothed we shall not be found naked. For we that are in this tabernacle do groan, being burdened, not for that we would be unclothed, but clothed upon, that mortality might be swallowed up of life. Now he that hath wrought us for the selfsame thing is God, who also hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit. Therefore we are always confident, knowing that whilst we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord." A dichotomy is a contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. That is the dichotomy that Paul has been writing about at the end of chapter 4, and he continues to do so in chapter 5. In chapter 4 he wrote, "Though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed," verse 16 of chapter 4. There is what you see and what you don't see, the body and the spirit. One is deteriorating and the other is being invigorated. One reminds us of time, what is temporary, and the other of eternity, what is permanent. In the verses that we have read, Paul writes about two structures: our earthly house of this tabernacle and a building of God, and house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. And that's in verse 1. It seems that Paul, the tent maker, he knew a thing or two about tents, is contrasting a tent, which is a temporary structure, with a house, which is a permanent structure. Paul was very aware that the time of his service on earth would come to an end. The day was approaching when the tent, he's talking about his own body of course, would be taken down. It would be dissolved. So what would happen then? He looked forward with certainty to the permanent building, not temporary but permanent, not temporal but eternal, not of human construction but of divine pattern. This was actually one of the eternal things that Paul thought about when he said, "We look at the things which are not seen," in verse 18. Indeed, he looked forward to it. "In this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed upon with our house, which is from heaven," in verse 2. That building of God was something that Paul was confident about. God hath given unto us the earnest of the Spirit in verse 5. The indwelling Spirit was the guarantee that it would be his. Twice over he says, "We are always confident," in verse 6, and "we are confident," in verse 8. He was not deterred by what he saw around him, but motivated by what he did not see. "We walk by faith, not by sight," in verse 7. He looked forward to that day when he would be with the Lord. Now look at how he describes it: to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord in verse 8. The idea is really a contrast between being away from home in the body and at home with the Lord. Although we have never been in heaven, we will very much feel at home. And the prospect of that should lift our hearts in joyful anticipation.